No, at 10 o'clock, Tom.
Oh, got it.
You'll actually see the countdown.
Yeah, I'll get it'll be down to the countdown then also. Yeah, got it.
All right, we're just waiting for a few momentarily.
All right, well, let's get started here. We got some people on. We get some other people maybe to join. So, get the music back on. So let's jump in and get started. We'll have this recorded so this can get out to people that couldn't get on today. We know that's kind of a challenge sometimes. So let's kick this off. And so hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for signing up, and more importantly, for you guys that are showing up. We're excited to bring you this Intro to Power platform. My name is Tom Dick. I'm a partner with Solutia Consulting. I see we had some people sign up from across the country. So just by way of intro, we're a Twin Cities-based boutique management and IT consulting firm. We've been in business nearly 30 years, serving everything from Fortune 5 global organizations to startup clients that span multiple various industries. We specialize in business systems and solutions through our offerings in everything from IT strategy to enterprise architecture and software development. One of our focus areas is Power Platform, which is the reason we're here today, and brings me to introducing you to Ryan Oliveira. Ryan is a consulting manager with Solutia. He has significant experience, both depth and breadth, gained through many years in leading and deploying solutions in the Microsoft ecosystems. he's got a lot of knowledge and a lot of learnings and a lot of scars from that time frame that hopefully benefits you in joining this and understanding more about the Power Platform. So Ryan is our leader in driving on our team in driving our Microsoft Power Platform capabilities and services. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to him to give you a little bit more on his background and set up the focus for the webinar today. Ryan?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for the nice introduction. As Tom said, I've spent about 15 plus years helping organizations with complex business problems and technology problems, and mostly in the Microsoft cloud and infrastructure and ecosystem. And then most recently, in the Power Platform space and Azure space. At Solutia, I work with clients across all kinds of different industries, helping them with practical, scalable solutions, everything from process automation to modern data platform strategy and governance. So as we get going here today, we're going to dive right in here. As you may have seen, your mics are already kind of muted. They're going to be muted until the Q&A portion of the session of the webinar. But feel free to drop those questions into the chat. And also feel free to join me on camera if you'd like. Lastly, we'll be recording this, posting this to YouTube and sending you a link to the recording after the webinar. So without further ado, let's get going. Let's figure out what our goal is today. Our goal is really to kind of provide an introduction to anybody that's kind of seen or heard the term Power Platform, to kind of give them that fresh introduction. What is it that Power Platform is? We're going to take a look at all the products at a very high level. It's going to be very demo rich, and you're going to see all the components of Power Platform, maybe with the exception of maybe one or two. And then we're really going to be teeing up a kind of a deeper dive into the platform, where we go and take, we'll show you the box, and then in the deeper dive, we're going to open up the box and go in, and that deep dive is going to be scheduled kind of for the August timeframe. And so looking at Power Platform, as we kind of talked about, there's all these kind of subcomponents that make up the product that deal with apps and workflows, and sort of websites and databases as well. We're gonna spend some time today going over kind of a Canvas app. You're going to see a model-driven type Power app. We're going to show you kind of a Power Automate flow that does does some parsing of Outlook and works with SharePoint. You're going to see Power BI dashboard. We're going to expose you to a Copilot Studio and a Copilot agent. And then we're at the end here, we're going to do a little piece where we takes all the components, pull them all together into what's known as a Power Platform solution, and deploy them through a pipeline to get them from one environment to the other, which is a very common thing for companies, organizations to have to do in order to manage the products inside the organization and whatnot. So let's talk a bit about what Power Platform is. One thing before I jump off this slide here, we are not going to cover Power Pages or data versions. Power Pages being sort of the website design subcomponent of Power Platform, and database or Dataverse being sort of the data underpinnings, database, data infrastructure, common data services model under Power Platform. So when we talk about Power Platform, there's always the term low code, no code kind of moniker that goes with Power Platform, and kind of let's sort of debunk what that is. When you talk about software engineering and sort of, all kinds of architectures come to mind, all kinds of strategies for pulling together software, are available in the industry. What this sort of, the way I like to say it is, this is sort of software to help build software. And so for the business, it's often used in ways to help create all kinds of new methodologies to bring software to life. And so in this case, low code platforms helps bring a lot of software to people that wouldn't consider themselves software developers or software people even. If you were handy with a spreadsheet, Power Platform is very much something Microsoft wants you to be looking at to help solve problems in your organization and whatnot. And so Microsoft has been investing not just in the platform itself, and it's done clearly a pretty good job of doing that, of not just investment in the software, in the development and deployment of the software as a product, but also in the community around Power Platform, making sure resources available for learning and documentation and all of that kind of stuff. And clearly they're not just investing it as a one-time, data stream for themselves. They're also reinvesting over time into Power Platform and integrating that as part of their D365 implementation and structure. So yeah, so let's dive in. And the first way we're going to dive in is we're going to take a practical example. In this case, an emergency worker type of scenario. We're going to take this example, sort of pull a story together and see how Power Platform can help solve a problem in the emergency worker space, a space I'm pretty passionate about. We're going to talk a bit about some of the complex systems that are involved, pulling in pulling in data or associated with data, involved, say, for example, in a fire call or an ambulance call, or, EMS, all the EMS services, or an EMT call, police calls. They all start with a 911 call that's routed through the CAD systems, or what's known as computer-aided dispatch software. A lot of that software, extremely complex, pulling in data from phones and, across all kinds of networks to ensure that, we can put EMT and first responders, our EMS services and first responders on the scene, in an efficient and have the right tools and people and skills, on the scene at the right time. And so those complex systems often bring with it a lot of data, a lot of networks, a lot of software, and to make sure that everybody gets on the scene, everybody gets the job done. There's a lot of software involved in retasking, post-incident response, making sure that once say, for example, in this example where the fire's out, well, we've got to restock the truck. We've got to make sure the hoses are packed away and recertified, and all the equipment is retested, and all of the components that the first responders use are rechecked and made sure that they're recertified to go out again next. But then what tends to happen, or what I've seen happen, or one of the problems that exists out there, is the ability to take some very simple tactical items or workflows, and sort of mesh them with some of these complex systems. So we have an incident that's happened here in this example. How do we know who was there at the incident, right? Well, a lot of times, or in some situations, we're using paper still to make sure, what's known as a run sheet, to actually make sure that hey, we know that firefighter was on that scene, or that EMT worker was on that scene. They fill out a paper run sheet to make sure that, yep, okay, we know and can account for them being there. Now, the whole thing is easy to fill out, easy to kind of slip into the box or fax it into the office. However, for admin teams, it can make it really difficult to kind of manage all this incoming paper, and make sure that it's all correct, and kind of, and because paychecks are involved with making sure that all these people get paid correctly. That can be difficult to respond to and difficult to get right every time. So how Power Platform can come and help in this situation, what we're going to show is the ability to sort of take a lot of this data, take the data from some of these complex systems, reorganize it into a fairly simple model for us to create. In this case, we're going to use a QR code to be able to scan in our worker and have that person respond and pull, and report their presence on scene, that they were on this scene or on this call, and be able to tie that data together. We're also going to be able to show some neat ways to be able to perform, to show reporting for things like, chiefs and administrators. And we're also going to be able to use Copilot to be able to interrogate the system in a couple of different ways. So, all right, let's see. So let's dive in. As we look at this, before we actually get to the software and jumping in, we're just going to show a quick little diagram here to show that we've got our incident email that's going to come in. We're going to use Power Automate to parse that email. That email is going to take that data, which is kind of all in the form of a sort of big chunk of data that we need to sort of parse and turn into rows and columns. Those rows and columns will effectively be displayed for an app to sort of say, okay, well, here's all our incidents that we have that are available for you to scan in. You'll have a QR code that this individual can use a mobile app to go in, scan. Yep, I was there. I'm from station 3. I'm on engine 3, and I was in the role of a firefighter, and I'm able to kind of go click submit, and then that work activity is going to be reported back into SharePoint for basically us to be able to report onto using Power BI, and then also be able to interrogate using a Copilot agent and whatnot. So let's get to the demo. Okay, so in our inbox, here. All right, so in our inbox, we have a sample of, here's for example, a sample of some of the information that's provided. It's a little cryptic, but that's where our Power Automate flow comes in. Our Power Automate flow is able to sort of look at this email as it gets triggered. So it's triggered by an Outlook connector. So when it knows when a new email arrives, it's got to do some conversions and then some parsing. And then as we've done all our parsing, we go through, and then at the end of this, as we mentioned, we go ahead and take our key data that we're going to insert in our row, and we effectively just lay it into the work list, and all our parse values are going to end up in that work list. And so once we do that, we've got our work list. We can kind of see all of our data sort of loaded into that work list, ready for our model-driven app to basically be able to kind of pull this data out. And really what it's going to be displaying is this key here, this incident number. That's the number that we care about, to basically say, okay, here's our model-driven app. It's got some of the most recent incidents out there. And so basically, just because you can only scan into some of the more recent incidents, you're gonna select the incident. The barcode is provided, and you can already see some of the people that have already scanned into this into this particular incident. You would basically use a Power App. In this case, this is your work tracker. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Let me clean up my data here a little bit. And so basically what we're going to be able to do is effectively go in, reset, basically allow ourselves to scan the application, come in here and see that I've scanned the barcode. All my defaults are showing up because I've set them all up in the application here. And I'm at station 3. I'm on engine 3, which E3 stands for engine 3, and then in the firefighter role. And then I go ahead and click submit, and then I'm done. Effectively, back to if I need to scan another item, I'm able to go in there, and we can kind of see that our row has been added. I think it probably got added while we're talking here. So this is our row that got added here. I didn't use a real barcode here. It doesn't really show up on camera here very well. So that's kind of why we kind of skipped that live step. But as we saw, our work activity got added here. And so what we're able to see from our Power BI reporting standpoint is we're able to load our work activity and see that right in the Power BI report. And so you have a number of different filters, components that you can see in the report. We pulled all of those. We pulled all of the work and the work activity table in, or list in rather, and related it through the incident number. We tied them together through the incident number, and then started working with Power BI to throw a couple components on the list here. As I select them, you can see who's signed into the different items and whatnot, and you can be filtering by station if you like. You can also filtered by the different incident codes, which are, so sort of whether there's a fire, whether it's an alarm or a personal injury, or you can even filter down by the code itself or whatnot. So lots you can do by connecting out to the data source. Another way to get to our data is through Copilot. So exciting new ways here using artificial intelligence and using the sort of OpenAI platform here. What we've done here is created a Copilot agent. Copilot Studio is where we are here. So we're part of, we're taking the sort of the Copilot product. We're sort of saying, okay, this is the work manager site, which is the actual SharePoint site that the data is in. So we're referencing that as knowledge at a high level, and then each of the lists we add in as tools, and that's really all we've needed to do. From there, it reads the data. There's a number of other things we could be adding to add more intelligence to our agent, but for now, we set up and deployed the agent to teams. You can already see some of the stuff we've been doing with the data we have already. I will ask it some of the other questions already. Let's see. Tell me about the work ID let me see if it works with incident ending in 389. So let's see. So hopefully it can bring back some information for me. Can you see it thinking there? Okay, of course. Let me try the work ID 389. So sometimes you have to either coach it or tell it what an incident is. Sometimes you just have to tell it what the work ID is. We've been experimenting and yep. So here it's kind of saying, okay, yep, I understand that this individual from station 3 was on apparatus 3 for work ID 389. So some interesting things we can do there. Like we've said, we've been asking it some questions, within our testing and whatnot. We can find the, let's just see. Tell me the incident details for work ID 389. Let's see if we can get the actual work details versus the work activity. There we go. So we're able to see, yep, these are basically the address comments and some of the details. And so we haven't really had to do much with this agent. We just sort of plugged in, pointed at the two lists, and it kind of did the rest in understanding some of that information and whatnot. So really cool stuff. And so now we've talked about flows, we've talked about Power Apps, we've talked about Power BI reports and Copilot. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we covered is sort of understanding all these different components. Power Platform has a way to use what's known as solutions. And so solutions, we're looking at a solution right now. Some of the components that are in here make up that solution. So there's sort of our work manager Power App, or sort of our Power App is here. We've got we've got our Canvas app, our tracker here, and then our run sheet manager, which is our model driven app. So we have a number of those components there, as well as some of the components needed to connect to the data. So our connection references, those are all here. All of those, our flow is here. All of those are wrapped up in a solution that allows us to package up the solution and move it forward and whatnot. And so that's one of the nice things is you get some of the more advanced capabilities with Power Platform. To all of those things are sitting in this environment right now. And as a process, if we wanted to say move it over to another environment or deploy it there, we would use something called a pipeline. And so a pipeline is something where we can, again, sort of like consider our development environment where we started building things. Let's just say we built that in our Power Platform default environment. We built it there, but we want to put it out to share with people in a different environment. We have that ability to use a pipeline to do that, and we can go ahead and deploy that using a pipeline. So pulls everything together in a solution and then moves it across to a completely different environment in a pipeline. So some really cool stuff. All right, so let's see, let's get back here. So we've looked at a lot of different components here at a very, very high level. We looked at how the data came in and went across into the into all the subcomponents. We also saw how we used and took some of those components and moved them across the different environments. Whether they're the components themselves or the connectors to get to those components, those are equally as important. For as you start to build more and more solutions, you'll start to see that information. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the solution review, overall, the use of the QR code was a helped the solution not be a barrier to progress for the firefighters themselves. It was just sort of like, whether they wrote it down on paper or scanned it, it took about the same amount of time and whatnot. It's just having that phone available in your pocket. And then from an administrative workload, that workload today was 6 hours, and it's prospected to take a lot less time, probably down to about an hour or two a month to get those reports kind of figured out and out the door. And so, and now that time can be spending more time on data insights and conversations about kind of, again, perhaps conversations with the Copilot agent and back and forth and looking at those reports or whatnot. So that a lot of that stuff we've covered in a very high level of detail. What we want to have, the next round from here is really looking at it in a deeper level of deep detail. That's going to happen August 20th, and so we're going to do that deep dive on August 20th. Um, so yeah, Tom, what do you say?
Yeah. Great. Thanks for walking us through that, Ryan, and maybe more so for making a process more or more efficient that whether all of us have been or any of us have been impacted by that kind of emergency situation or will in the future. Thanks for working on something like that and seeing how Power Platform can really be applied to do that. We have a few more minutes here. Let's take a minute and look at questions. We talked about the chat. Looks like there'd been one asked and answered. How long? Let's do this, Doug. How long did it take to develop and test this app? And Doug, if you have any context to add to that, just jump in and feel free to ask Ryan directly too.
Yeah, we do have mics off yet, David?
Yeah, we're now able to unmute if you would like to ask a live question. We'll start with Doug.
So, in terms of how long it took to do all this, kind of somewhere between, like, I would say, like the 60 to 80 hour mark. Like a lot of it kind of depends on sort of the availability of the environment, and just making sure that we have the components set up, the environment set up. But once you're in there and working, like a lot of it was the parsing of the email, sort of getting those details figured out. And then kind of, again, I had a good understanding of the environment. I'd say, like, and I'd say the environment. I had a good understanding of the requirements is probably the better word to use there. Just sort of what was needed and kind of kind of living in this scenario. But certainly, the more you know about the actual scenario itself, it's easier to kind of move through the solution. So
That's good. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
You mentioned that
Great
you
job.
can do some Power BI trends. How can Power BI use to track the trends across the incident types or the response times?
Yeah, I mean, like our thanks, Mark. Our like our scenario today, we're just capturing some very basic data, right? Like, to create a fairly simple example here. But certainly, when you start looking at this data over years, and I know, like, we do have availability to some of that data. It really does start to get interesting and how you can use Power BI to start looking at those kinds of trends. And so, like, you can start taking all kinds of like taking and start to see all kinds of things that you wouldn't imagine to be predictable, especially like in either a fire EMS type of world, about kind of patterns, whether they're seasonal or whether they're like, let's just say around the holidays or around like all of those things become really incredibly insightful or whatnot. And so Power BI can definitely help you do that.
That's great. We got
Ryan, I'm getting some comments in here. Francois says, thank you for the presentation, gentlemen. Appreciate the time. Arvind Kumar says, great job, Ryan. Carlos also mentions great presentation. And Doug, very clear, laid out presentation. Thank you for having this.
Right on. Appreciate
Thank you. Yeah,
appreciate
thank you
guys.
guys for commenting. Thank you for those comments. We have time for one last question, if there is one. Does anybody have any other question they want to throw at Ryan before we kind of end the webinar? If not, we'll move into just wrapping up here. So again, as Ryan mentioned, Wednesday, August 20th, he'll be doing a deep dive more into this solution at 10 a.m. So please look for an invitation to that and sign up. We'd love to see you all there. If you have any questions in between now and then, feel free to reach out to Ryan. We put his email on the screen here, Ryan_Oliveira at solutiaconsulting.com. Feel free to reach out if he can be of any help to you. Obviously, we're excited about, forgive the wording here, but power of Power Platform, right? And look forward to future webinars and kind of putting more content out there that hopefully help everyone see the power of this thing and be able to apply it better in your world. So with that, on behalf of Ryan and the whole Solutia team, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you further on up the road. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Have a great day, Al.
Thanks, everybody.